Okay, listen, if you are not into K-pop demon hunters, do not let that deter you from watching the video today. The three bard builds that I go over today are solid builds that are fun, they're powerful, they could work great together in like an Oops All Bards game if you wanted, and don't have to have any kind of relation to this oh so fantastic movie if you don't want them to. But also, if you are a fan of Huntrix, it's gonna be that much more delicious. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun, but also really powerful to play. So if you also really enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, or if you just like theory crafting, or today at least, if you just really like K-pop demon hunters, then welcome home. This is where you belong. I am so glad you're here, so thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Right, so just in case you haven't seen the phenomenon that is this movie, it's a show put out by Sony Animation Studios, the same studio that did the Spider-Verse flicks, among others. Sony Animation is kind of killing it lately. It's on Netflix, and it's a great movie about learning to love ourselves despite our perceived flaws, not hiding those supposed flaws from people we love, and maybe even rethinking what we consider to be flaws in the first place. Oh, and also about Korean pop stars who kill demons and save the world through the power of their music.
Doesn't sound too bad. I'll try and stay awake.
It's freaking awesome, and I and my teenage daughters love it. My wife likes it fine. Now, here on this channel, I get a ton of requests to build characters for Dungeons & Dragons specifically that are from like other fictional universes. Stuff like, make a build for this superhero but in D&D, or how would you recreate Matt Cawthon from The Wheel of Time in D&D, etc., etc. And with only one exception, the Kaladin Stormblessed build that I did up there a long time ago from the Stormlight Archive, right, Brandon Sanderson, I have avoided doing stuff like that. I just kind of feel like it's an exercise akin to trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Stuff just doesn't quite match up perfectly when you're trying to recreate one thing, especially if that thing isn't classic high fantasy, for a world and game system that wasn't really designed to represent that thing, you know? And it always just feels a little off, a little weird to me. But this movie, you guys, it is the biggest brainworm. I can't stop thinking about it lately. The music is infectious in a good way, in my opinion, even though pop music isn't typically my jam. And honestly, from the moment I watched it the first time, I started thinking, I feel like these characters would be pretty easy to recreate in D&D. A lot of these abilities and features and powers have some pretty close parallels. A week ago, I played a one-shot with some friends, and I suggested that we all do a K-pop Demon Hunter Bard build, and it almost took. And it kind of got me thinking, you know, I think you could do a pretty decent party of all bards and make it work. They are so versatile, and especially with a little multi-classing, you could easily get a very well-rounded and potent group. And yeah, they could pretty closely mimic Huntrix if that's what you really wanted to do. And of course, that's what I want to do. The movie is about to become the most watched movie of all time on Netflix. It might even have already gotten there by the time you're watching this. So yeah, felt like a fun time to celebrate. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to present three mostly bard builds. One that's kind of like pure offense, built to prioritize melee weapon damage overall, and I think that maps best onto Mira with her anger management issues and her big old demon slaying glaive. Then I'm going to do one that is a well-rounded approach, prioritizing a mix of defense, offense, and even support and leadership capabilities that I think would probably work best for a Rumi-like character. And then finally, we're going to do a build that emphasizes a bit more utility, skill, nimbleness, subterfuge, mixed with demon slaying power that feels like a good fit for my personal favorite, Zoey. In the interest of time, I'm just going to take each build to level 11, which, I mean, most people stop playing at around that level or earlier, right? But I will make some suggestions on where I think you should take the build if you were to keep playing it into late game. You ready to jump in with me? I am proud to present D&D episode number 225, a build for every K-pop demon hunter. But first, some exciting news. Several of you have told me over the years that you think I should get into voice acting, or like reading audiobooks. Well, guess what? I technically kind of just did my very first voice acting gig, and it's part of the new third-party TTRPG setting, Scorched Basin, by Homie and the Dude, today's video sponsor, that launches on Kickstarter today as of this video release. So let me tell you a little about Scorched Basin. It's a desert setting inspired by Mad Max and Dune, and it's system agnostic, meaning that it will work with pretty much any TTRPG you like to play, from D&D to Daggerheart to Pathfinder and beyond. You can drop it into your existing campaign or run an entire campaign here. It includes a cool new alchemy system that lets you combine local flora for awesome concoctions, a whole movement and combat system for land vehicles, and even a new magic system called The Current with over 30 different manipulations that players can learn and enhance. It reminds me a little bit of the Bene Gesserit's voice, right? But of course, you're also going to get unique factions, tons of new player options, fantastic artwork, a grundle of new monsters. I believe that grundle is the official technical term for a group of monsters, like a murder of crows or a parliament of owls. There's unique locations, including battle maps. There's just a ton of great content here. And yeah, my favorite bit is that they've actually contracted with me and tons of other RPG content creators, many of whom you know and love, to voice a lot of the characters for the setting. When you back the project, you're going to get links to audio recordings of our voices that you can use then in game when the associated character meets the party as a way to introduce them, right? It's pretty cool. And you might have fun guessing who's voicing who. As a result of this, I actually make a little bit if you back the project. So this is a great way to get fantastic new content to use at your table, but then also both to support a fantastic third-party content creator and to support me, if that's something you want to do. So please don't delay and go check out the Kickstarter for Scorched Basin right now. The link is in the video description and the pinned comment. You can just pause the video. I promise I will wait for you. And you really should go back it right now, because the first 500 backers, that's not a lot, of the all-in metal TTRPG community tier get a limited edition numbered and signed metal print from Scorched Basin. So get those before the filthy viewers of other channels like D&D Shorts, or XP to Level 3, or Pack Tactics, or Dungeon Dad, or Diana of the Rose, or Bob World Builder, or many others gobble them up. Yeah, there are a ton of awesome content creators involved in this one. That is just a fraction of them. So, huge thanks to Homie and the Dude for your support today, and in the past for that matter. I actually got to meet these guys at Gen Con last month, and they were so awesome, so kind and down to earth. So yeah, go check them out. And then we'll get back to the build. So, first up, our offensive, damage-minded martial bard. I think, again, this one has got to be Mira. Red hair, fiery temper, hard on the outside with a soft, chewy center. I think she's the hardest hitting of the three, slicing through groups of demons at the same time with her glaive, and even sometimes exhibiting some pretty impressive magical area of effect damage. I think even though she's going to be mostly a bard, as I think all of them should be, we have to prioritize all of these characters getting an awesome magical weapon that they can just summon at will, because that's kind of their thing, right? For that reason, yeah, I think we start off at level 1 for Mira with a single level of Warlock for a starting class. Now, does this mean that she's made a pact with an otherworldly being? Maybe. If you're playing strictly by D&D rules in a D&D world, yeah. But if you're playing in a demon hunter's world, I'm sure you could come up with all kinds of ways to flavor this so that it makes sense for your character. They are definitely drawing on their power from some sort of otherworldly or mystical or paranormal source, and that's good enough for me. Tell me in the comments below how you might justify a warlock dip on this character if you had to. As for our species, sure, all the demon hunters are human, so go for that if you really want to be as close to the lore as possible. If you're okay bending the rules just a bit, maybe claiming that flavor is free, I can see Goliath working for Mira. She's the biggest of the three, she's the angriest. I'd say the most Goliath-esque. And I really like Goliath here for the hill ancestry that lets you knock an enemy prone, proficiency bonus times per day. As a melee character, that would give us advantage on our subsequent attacks, right? And we really like advantage to help us hit more often. As for our background, I think you can and maybe should go entertainer. Sure, that's sort of, again, the most accurate if we're truly trying to recreate this character as closely to the fiction as possible, right? And entertainer is a great pick. I think my preference, though, mechanically, would be to take an old background and customize it, or just do a custom background if your table allows that. If not, I would also be tempted to take the merchant background here, because that has the origin feat that I most want on this build. Entertainer is going to give the musician feat, and that's great. Take that if you want it, or you have to. But I think on this character, I'd prefer lucky, so that we can have advantage on an attack or saving throw, again, proficiency bonus times per day. It's just going to make our damage numbers look slightly better if we could, for example, use a luck point to have advantage on our first attack against an enemy, knock them prone thanks to the Hill Giant Goliath feature, right, and then have advantage on our other attacks against them that round too. Either feat is great though. For our starting ability scores, assuming that we're using the point buy method, as I always do, I'm going to say let's go with a 15 charisma and take a +2 there, a 13 dexterity +1, a 14 constitution, and then a 13 strength. We can get to 14 dex and 14 con and 17 charisma, whether we take entertainer or merchant, so just get there however you need to, right? We got to get that 13 strength for a feat that I'm going to want later that I'm sure you can guess at. For equipment for this character, I mean, eventually you're going to want to get the best medium armor that you can. Right now we're not proficient in it, right? But just keep an eye out for that. And then of course a glaive, because yeah, that's what that thing that Mira swings around is called, right? Of course, as a warlock, you're not going to worry about buying a glaive when you create this character, because we get an Eldritch Invocation at Warlock 1. And of course we are going to take the Pact of the Blade for our invocation, which says that as a bonus action, we can conjure any simple or martial melee weapon that we want, and we automatically bond with it and have proficiency with it. When we attack with it, we can use our charisma modifier for the +2 hit and damage instead of strength or dexterity. Very nice. And that damage can be slashing for a glaive, right? Or necrotic, radiant, or psychic. Fantastic versatility, perfect for what we are trying to create. Don't forget, glaives do a d10 of damage and have reach, meaning that you can hit enemies that are 10 feet away from you. Super handy. We also get warlock spells here, of course, and I'm going to say let's grab Green Flame Blade so that when we hit an enemy, we can do a little extra damage to an enemy standing next to them, leaning into that cleave-like damage that we often see Mira doing, right? I like Sword Burst here as a spell for a little area of effect around me damage that's on point thematically, like that one time when she slams the butt of her glaive into the ground, right? And it's like, totally perfect. Cause Fear seems appropriate since, yeah, I'd be afraid if I saw this character running at me, like killing everything in their path. And I think we should take Hex and plan on concentrating on that at early levels to get an extra d6 of damage on all of our attacks, even though we've got to spend a bonus action both to cast it and to transfer it to our next target when our initial target dies, right? Still a nice way to add a bit of extra damage early on for us. One thing I'm just going to say about spells here, yeah, I'm going to kind of try to highlight spells that I think fit best thematically for each build, but a lot of times there could be overlap, right? And all of these are just like decent choices. Most are worth considering on any build, especially if you're not necessarily married to like trying to fit this build strictly into a particular K-pop demon hunter, right? And are just trying to be a cool, gishy bard. Yeah, you know who else is super cool? And maybe even gishy for that matter. My channel members and patrons, you guys, quick shout out. You're the best. Thank you so much for your support. I could not do this without you, and I really, really appreciate what you do for me. If you're not a channel member or a patron, I'd love it if you just consider becoming one. Down below, there's links to like the YouTube channel membership thing and the Patreon thing. Whichever you sign up for, as long as you sign up at the silver level or higher, I give all of my perks to you. And I just ask that you pay what you feel like you can afford and what you think it's worth. Those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I do for all of my builds, access to the community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do that I'm going to be doing in just a couple of days as I'm recording this. If you can't or are not interested in supporting the channel this way, that's fine. Thanks for just being here, watching, liking, subscribing. They're also great ways to support the channel. So yeah, again, thank you. Okay, at level 2, we are going to start taking bard levels, and I guess it wouldn't hurt to have this conversation here. Yeah, I think if we're really trying to make the Demon Hunters D&D characters, they should be bards. Do what you want, obviously. I've seen people arguing that they should be paladins or blade singers, etc., but come on. They sing and dance while they fight, inspiring one another and above all their fans. They get magical powers from and save the world with their songs. They're bards. Argue about it in the comments if you want. But anything else is a stretch, and you know it. Okay. As a Bard 1, then, we get Bardic Inspiration, which says that charisma modifier times per day, we can use a bonus action to inspire our allies so that within the next hour, they can add our inspiration die, a d6 for now, to a failed attack, save, or ability check. Infinitely useful. And when the whole party is full of bards, everyone should pretty much always have an inspiration on hand, which is great. We also get bard spells here, and I think the most thematically appropriate ones for a Mira-like offensive first-minded character would be Vicious Mockery, so you can throw out an insult to do damage and also demoralize. Command is nice to force an enemy to flee in terror or grovel prone, etc. Fairy Fire gives advantage on all attacks from all sources against enemies who fail their save against it. It's a pretty solid use of concentration there to give an offensive benefit to your entire party. I like Long Strider to just increase your move speed without requiring concentration. And of course, Silvery Barbs, if you can endure the wrath of the Silvery Barbs mob, that is. I don't know, that's a dicey proposition. Every one of those Silvery Barbs mobs members are huge fans of this show. I might incur their wrath even further here. But man, yeah, a whole party with Silvery Barbs prepared so they can force rerolls on successful enemy attacks and saves and then grant advantage to an ally on their next roll. That's powerful and has the potential to really piss off your DM. So use with caution. At level 3, we would be a Bard 2, and that means we get Expertise, right? That doubles our proficiency bonus for 2 skills that we're proficient in. I think a Mira-like angry attacker Bard would probably want Intimidation and Performance. I mean, everyone's got to have Performance, right? It's the most important thing that we can get if we want to restore the Hanmoon. But PYF here, pick your favorite if you want something else. We also get Jack of all trades, letting us add half of our proficiency bonus to any skill check we make that doesn't already add our proficiency bonus. This party is going to be full of fantastic utility all around. Level 4, we would be a Bard 3, and that means we get our Bard subclass. And I think the best fit for this build here is going to be Valor. I know some of you are thinking Dance Bard for Mira because she's the choreographer, but I mean, Dance Bards are all about punching stuff. She does that once in a while, but we want to emphasize our glaive for damage above all. So I think Valor is the clear choice here. It gives some great benefits. First up, martial training gives us proficiency in martial weapons, shields, and medium armor, so we can finally equip that scale mail or half plate we've been eyeing all this time. Very nice for our survivability. And we also get combat inspiration here, which says that our inspired allies can also use the inspiration that we give them to add the die to the damage of an attack roll or as a reaction to add to their armor class when they get hit by an attack, potentially causing that attack only, unfortunately, to miss. It's a nice bit of added support for our allies there. We also get 2nd level Bard spells here, and my favorites for this build would be Enlarge Reduce to shrink an enemy or grow ourselves, making us large size and causing our weapons to do an extra d4 of damage. Not exactly sure how that has an in-show equivalent use, right? And there's going to be plenty of spells and features here that, you're going to have to really maybe stretch a little bit on the flavor, but it's not a bad offensive option. Hold Person is a fantastic spell to use against humanoids, and maybe they're so enraptured by your voice or terrified by your wrath that they're just paralyzed, letting everyone get advantage on their attacks and automatically crit if you're within 5 feet. So make sure you move up to within 5 feet if you're swinging that glaive from reach, right? At level 5, we would be a Bard 4, and we get our first general feat, and I think the best choice here is going to be Warcaster. It raises our charisma to 18, much appreciated, gives us advantage on concentration checks, super valuable, lets us cast spells with our hands full, wasn't really a problem for us, but then it also lets us cast a spell instead of just make a melee attack when an enemy leaves our reach, and that would allow us to, say, Booming or Green Flame Blade to do a little extra damage to them, right? Now that we're character level 5 anyways. Booming Blade is especially good here on opportunity attacks with Warcaster because they are moving as they leave our reach. At most tables, as they move and you hit them with Booming Blade, they will automatically trigger the extra damage that you take from moving when you get hit with Booming Blade. Make sure you clarify that with your DM. Regardless, you're going to do a little extra damage on the initial hit, right? So it's a good option. And if it can work for you this way at your table, I would probably grab Booming Blade at Warlock 1. At level 6, we would be a Bard 5, and that means we get Font of Inspiration first up, which causes our inspirations to reset on a short or long rest now. Very solid. Those inspiration dice are D8s, by the way, now too. Very cool. And then we get the almighty 3rd level spells. My favorites for this build would be Fear and Slow, I think. There's lots of good ones, of course, but Fear causes enemies to drop what they're holding and flee. Really, really great control. And I mean, I'd probably be terrified of this glaive-wielding force of destruction if I were a demon. Slow is just fantastic for both offense and defense, reducing enemies' armor class and dexterity saves by 2, having their move speed, and severely hampering their offensive prowess and potentially spellcasting too. Probably my favorite debuff in the game, I think, because it doesn't just take enemies out of the fight, it kind of keeps them in there and doing things, but then it just makes them so much easier to kill and so much less potent. It just puts mobs on easy mode. I think it's more fun than just shutting them down, personally. Okay, I usually pause at level 6 to do a damage report, but with 3 builds to get through and only going to level 11 on each of them, I'm just gonna wait and do that at the end in the interest of time, okay? Suffice to say, we're doing really great right now, but at level 7, we'd be a Bard 6, and that means things get much better for us because as a Valor Bard, we get extra attack. And it's not just any extra attack, right? In 5.24 rules, we get the Blade Singer extra attack, meaning we can make 2 weapon attacks with the attack action or replace one of them with a cantrip, meaning we could attack and then Booming or Green Flame Blade for a little extra damage, potentially even to another enemy standing next to our target in the case of Green Flame Blade, right? Which is really fantastic. At level 8, we would be a Bard 7. That means we get Counter Charm, a solid feature that says that we can use our reaction to allow a failed save by a party member against Charmed or Frightened to be re-rolled with advantage this time. Really fantastic when we need it. And then we get 4th level Bard spells, and while there are plenty of great ones worth mentioning, Fount of Moonlight is my favorite for this build. New to the 2024 rules, available only to bards and druids, this spell takes an action to cast, requires concentration, lasts 10 minutes, and gives resistance to radiant damage, and then adds an extra 2d6 to all of our attacks, and says that when an enemy within 60 feet does damage to us, we can use our reaction to force them to make a Constitution saving throw or be blinded. Really great debuff to put on almost any enemy. At level 9, we'd be a Bard 8, and we get another feat. And yes, I want to get Great Weapon Master. As badly as I wanted to get this feat earlier, I think it was best to wait for it. And now that our proficiency bonus at this level has been bumped to 4 especially, right? Getting our charisma higher was just overall better for us at those earlier levels, and Great Weapon Master is a half feat, but it specifically adds 1 to our strength only. It also has a prerequisite of 13 strength, which is why we had to start off with that, right? So it's going to bump that to 14 now, but then it says that we get a bonus to the damage of our heavy weapons, and a glaive is heavy, equal to our proficiency bonus, but only on attacks we make with our action. So that's potentially 8 more damage per round now. It's really nice. It also says that we get to make a bonus action attack with that weapon when we get a kill or a critical hit with it, right? So long as it's a melee heavy weapon. And that will probably come up more often than you might think on your turn. I think I typically estimate like 25% of the time, but I think in practice it's usually higher than that. All right, at level 10, we would be a Bard 9, and that means we get another round of expertise. Go ahead and pick your favorites on what skill to bolster there. And then we get 5th level Bard spells, and there are a lot of great spells for this build at this level. Hold Monster can now paralyze any enemy, not just humanoids. Synaptic Static is a fantastic spell for area of effect damage, and a great debuff. Yolanda's Regal Presence feels thematic to me as it requires enemies within 10 feet of you to make a wisdom save or take 4d6 psychic damage, be knocked prone, and be pushed up to 10 feet away. Now the demons are really cowering in fear at your might. Then finally, for this build today, level 11, we'd be a Bard 10, and that means we get Magical Secrets. This is the main reason I wanted to get to level 11 on this build, because yeah, Magical Secrets is just so good and so like sort of quintessentially Bard, right? It lets all Bards essentially gain access to the Wizard, Cleric, and Druid spell lists, in addition to their own, and we get to pick 2 spells now from those lists, and I think I'd probably want Steel Wind Strike, first of all, which we cast as an action, and and then make a melee spell attack against up to 5 targets within 30 feet of us for 6d10 force damage each. Then teleport to any unoccupied space within 5 feet of one of them. Feels like something you see the demon hunters do a lot in the show, right? Maybe not necessarily teleporting, but just moving super quickly among a whole host of enemies, cutting them down, right? But the most important spell for an offensively minded attacker here, of course, is going to be Conjure Minor Elementals, right? It adds 2d8 per hit as a 4th level spell, going up by a d8 for every level we upcast it, and that damage can be acid, cold, fire, or lightning. But it does require an action to cast instead of a bonus action like other similar spells. It also causes the ground within 15 feet of us to be difficult terrain for enemies, which is pretty cool. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, we'd want to take Spirit Shroud instead. As a 3rd level spell, Spirit Shroud does 1d8 damage per hit, upcasting to 2d8 as a 5th level spell. I'll get into it in a second, but you might actually want to grab both for your magical secrets for now to have options. Don't forget, our inspiration die jumps up to a d10 here, and the extra damage we get from Green Flame Blade and Booming Blade goes to 2d8 on a hit. Okay, so here we are at the end of Tier 2, beginning of Tier 3 play, right? What does combat and damage look like for this character? Perhaps more importantly, would we be better off using our concentration to upcast Conjure Minor Elementals to do 3d8 damage per hit, or would we rather have an upcast Spirit Shroud instead to do 2d8 damage per hit? You may be thinking that's the dumbest question that I've ever asked on this channel. But guess what? The answer is not as clear as you may think. I've been harping on this for a while now here, but Spirit Shroud only taking a bonus action to cast versus Conjure Minor Elemental's action is a huge deal. At this level, if at the beginning of the fight on round 1, we cast Conjure Minor Elementals on ourselves with our action, and then maybe just inspired someone with our bonus action or something, making 0 attacks on that first round, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter, we actually do less total damage than if we instead cast Spirit Shroud with our bonus action and start swinging right away on round 1. So at this spell level, at least, we're better off using Spirit Shroud despite the lesser damage if the encounter is only going to last 4 rounds or less. And hint hint, the vast majority of combat encounters at most tables do. And this has nothing of the tactical advantage that you get by doing some solid damage right at the beginning of the fight to potentially take out an enemy, maybe with the help of allies, preventing them from ever getting a turn to hurt or hamper you and your friends, right? So yeah, maybe Conjure Minor Elementals isn't as overpowered as some of us often claim. At least at these spell levels anyways. So sure, it would be great if we could get Conjure Minor Elementals going before combat starts if you know it's coming, right? The spell lasts 10 minutes, so that's possible, but it's not guaranteed, of course. Since I can't know if you are, I'm just going to assume that we're buffing ourselves on round 1, and in that case, yeah, I'm going with Spirit Shroud. After that, you're just running up to your chosen enemy, hopefully one who's standing next to a friend of theirs, but again, not something I'm going to assume, and just swinging away. I'd use a luck point to get advantage on the first attack, doing 1d10 plus 2d8 plus 8 damage if you hit, with Great Weapon Master and an upcast Spirit Shroud, right? And then I'd try to knock them prone if I were a Hill Giant Goliath, so I'd have advantage on my second attack as well. That attack would be a Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade cantrip that would do all of the above, plus an additional 2d8 to your primary target, right? Assuming a 25% chance to proc our bonus action Hue from Great Weapon Master, if we averaged it all over a 4-round combat encounter, against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would do 62 damage per round here. And against a 17 AC, it would be 53 DPR. And hey, over 50 damage per round? That's not bad at all. And if you can get Conjure Minor Elementals going before combat starts, that damage goes up by 5 to 10 per round, depending on enemy AC, making this first of my 3 all Bard and or K-pop Demon Hunter builds a really solid damage dealer. From this point on, with this build, if you were going to play them into higher levels, I would prioritize 2 things. 2 levels of fighter to pick up a nice fighting style, great weapon fighting if you really wanted to eke out just a little bit more damage, but it's not a lot. Defense might be better to just raise your armor class by 1. But then also for weapon masteries, so you could grab Graze for your glaive that would allow you to still do a little damage to your target, even if you missed them. And then Action Surge at fighter 2, so you could, once per short rest, get 2 actions on your turn instead of 1 to make a real flurry of glaive attacks once in a while for big burst damage. Or, sure, maybe cast Conjure Minor Elementals with 1 action, then Action Surge and make some attacks, right? Still on round 1. But also, I would want to prioritize 2 levels of Sorcerer for this build, and maybe even before Fighter, primarily so that I could get Meta Magic from Sorcerer and grab Quickened Spell. This lets you cast a spell as a bonus action that normally requires an action, and that would let us quicken Conjure Minor Elementals on round 1, making that like the clear winner for concentration, right? And also on subsequent rounds, you could quicken True Strike or Green Flame Blade as a cantrip, right? If you wanted to cannibalize your spell slots for more sorcery points anyways, you'd get to cast one of those blade trips as a bonus action, making a weapon attack with it that hits extra hard, and then again later as part of your extra attack action, right? As a Valor Bard. And altogether, it would add up to some pretty solid damage. Okay, so that is our offense first hard-hitting Mira-esque Bardic Demon Hunter. What about our fearless leader? What if we wanted something a little more well-rounded? In my mind, with her sword attacks and emphasis on trying to rally the team, do what's best for the fans and for the world, and lead her party to ultimate victory, a Rumi build would maybe be a little more well-rounded mix of damage, defense, and support. So whether you agree or not, or are interested in trying to emulate K-pop demon hunters or not, here's a martial spellsword bard that can do some solid melee damage, but also bring a great mix of support, control, and defense to the table. At level 1, yes, I think I would probably start out this build with a level of Warlock again for our starting class for the exact same reason that I did with Mira. Being able to prioritize Charisma overall and have both our spells and our weapon attacks benefit from the same ability score just makes us super sad, right? Single ability dependent, and that makes us super happy. And yeah, we've got to be able to just summon our weapon when we want. It is paramount to the look and feel and the mechanics of this character, so here we are. And yes, I will, when I get to like class features that I've already gone over, just sort of gloss over them and move along in the interest of time. So if you see me just kind of glossing over something and you're not quite sure how that thing works or why I wanted it or how it benefits us, you're gonna have to go back and watch the Mira one if you just skipped right here. Sorry. For our species on this build, yeah, I think I'm just gonna commit to human, not just for lore purposes, but humans are super diverse, getting 2 origin feats at the beginning, right? And that opens up some nice options for us. As for our background, again, old or custom background works, but entertainer is exactly what we want and exactly appropriate thematically. So let's just do that. The origin feat that we get from entertainer, musician, is stellar. It lets us give heroic inspiration to our entire party after every short and long rest, and that's something every character can always use. As for the second origin feat that we get for being human, I think I'd probably go tough. This simply gives us 2 more hit points per character level, making us better able to take blow after blow and keep fighting. For our starting ability scores, I'm going to say let's go with a 15 Charisma plus 2 again, a 15 Constitution plus 1, making us a little more durable, and then a 14 Dexterity. For equipment, again on this character, we're going to want to get the best medium armor we can find. And then, yeah, the best magical sword, whether that's a longsword or a rapier that you can find. I don't think it matters too much which weapon you pick. You could make an argument that the sword that Rumi uses looks more like one than the other. Maybe it's a little more longsword-ish to me. But yeah, flavor is free. It's a one-handed sword. Make it look how you want. Until we get a magical one, though, of course, we won't need to buy any weapons because as a Warlock 1, yes, we get the invocation Pact of the Blade again so that we can summon that magical weapon and make charisma-based attacks with it. As for spells at Warlock 1 most fitting for this build, I'd say to consider Blade Ward, which requires our concentration but then lowers enemy attacks against us by a d4, which is actually a super solid defensive buff, especially for a cantrip, right? I'd consider Mind Sliver, which can do a little damage and then reduce an enemy's next saving throw by a d4. A nice way to boost what your allies are doing. I'd probably grab Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade here as well, but primarily only for use until I get extra attack on this character, especially when we're at character level 5, right? We won't have extra attack yet, but the damage from Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade increase. And then I'd say sure, grab Hex for now if you want a little more offensive power, but also be sure to grab Armor of Agathis. This gives us some temporary hit points, a nice little survivability bump, but also returns damage to melee enemy attackers so long as you have temporary hit points. Nice little dual benefit for sure. At level 2 though, we would again start taking some Bard levels, giving us at Bard 1, Bardic Inspiration again, fantastic, but then for Bard spells that we get here, I would be sure on this build to grab Prestidigitation. I mean, we should probably all have prestidigitation, right? Since it's kind of just like a nice little extra razzle-dazzle. Some little fireworks going off during our performance kind of thing. But then I would prioritize Cure Wounds and or Healing Word, since we want to be able to support our fellow hunters and keep them on their feet. And I think Heroism, which would be a nice way to further inspire our allies, giving one of them, or maybe ourselves, immunity to the Frightened condition and some temporary hit points equal to our Charisma modifier every single round. Might be nice to couple that with Armor of Agathis, actually, if you can keep those temporary hit points from ever disappearing completely. Admittedly, you're not getting a ton of temporary hit points from this spell, so that's unlikely, but hey, it's possible. At level 3, we would be a Bard 2, meaning yes, we get expertise, and I think Rumi wants like performance, of course, but then maybe persuasion. She's pretty persuasive, and a lot less like intimidating and confrontational, maybe. Jack of all trades is great at this level again, but then level 4, we would be a Bard 3, and that means we get our Bard subclass, and on this build, I don't want Valor, no, I want Swords Bard. Good old Swords Bard, because, well, we're using a sword, but also because we too get medium armor proficiency, right? Yay. And then just scimitar proficiency, which is a little weird, but we don't need it. Remember, Pact of the Blade gives us proficiency with whatever weapon we summon or bond with, right? But Swords Bards get a fighting style at this level, and we would want to take Dueling to add 2 more damage to all of the attacks that we make with our Pact sword, whether it's a longsword or a rapier, not bad. Even better, we get the really great Blade Flourish feature, which says that when we take the attack action, we get an extra 10 feet of speed, and then if we hit with a weapon attack, we can spend a Bardic Inspiration to do one of 3 flourishes. Slashing Flourish lets us do extra weapon damage to another enemy standing next to our first enemy, equal to our Bardic Inspiration die, and that's kind of nice. I mean, Rumi makes some slashing kind of cleaving attacks sometimes too, right? Mobile Flourish lets us do that damage instead to our primary target and push them 5 feet, plus the number rolled on the Inspiration die, and lets us use our reaction to move to within 5 feet of them after we've pushed them, right? That's cool. But I think the one that I'd want to use most here would be Defensive Flourish, which does the same like Bardic Inspiration extra damage, right, to our target, and lets us add that same number that we roll to our armor class until the start of our next turn. Dang, that is a big defensive bump, potentially, making us much harder to hit for an entire round and letting us do extra damage at the same time. Super cool. As for the second level Bard spells that we get here, I think on this build I'd want to take Aid to increase the max hit points and heal 3 of us by 5, right? Scaling up when we upcast it. Lesser Restoration is handy if we need to cure a nasty condition. Mirror Image is a really solid defensive spell, conjuring 3 illusory duplicates of yourself who might take a hit for you, helping you stay alive. And yeah, we should probably all have pyrotechnics, right? When we're on stage, we need fireworks and smoke going off. Fireworks to potentially blind an enemy, and smoke to make an area heavily obscured. There's some really good potential use there, and it's thematically totally on point. At level 5, we would be a Bard 4, and that means we get our first general feat, and I'm going to want Warcaster for the same reasons that we wanted it on Mira. 18 Charisma, fantastic. At level 6, we'd be a Bard 5. And that means we get Font of Inspiration. It's as good as ever. And the Bardic Inspiration die bumping to a D8 is arguably even better for us, helping us do more damage and increase our armor class by even more, right? When we use that Defensive Flourish. As for the third level Bard spells that I would take on this build, for sure, I think you've got to prioritize Catnap above all, because that is our couch spell.
Couch! Oh.
It lets us give the party a short rest in just 10 minutes. That is like the most that these demon hunters ever rest, right? And then they're fully rejuvenated. Other good support and control options would be Tiny Hut to keep you safe during a long rest, typically. Dispel Magic to get rid of nasty magic effects. Motivational Speech seems really fitting and gives your whole party 5 temporary hit points and advantage on wisdom saves for an hour, as long as those temporary hit points last at least, scaling up by 5 more when you upcast it. And then, yeah, I still love Slow, and then I think I'd want Hypnotic Pattern on a Rumi build maybe. You dazzle your foes with a display of your incredible talent, potentially incapacitating several of them. That feels pretty fitting, and it's really powerful. At level 7, we would be a Bard 6, and Swords Bards also get extra attack so that we can make 2 attacks per turn instead of 1. Alas, no replace one of them with a cantrip for Swords Bards, but that's okay. It's still solid. And again, we care more about being well-rounded than just pure offense, right? At level 8, we would be a Bard 7. We get Counter Charm again. That's nice, but for the 4th level Bard spells here, I mean, sure, Fount of Moonlight again is nice, but there's some solid utility and support and control options here that would be fitting for this build, I think. Dimension Door, Compulsion, Freedom of Movement, Polymorph. They might not all fit perfectly into a K-pop theme again, right? If you're trying to really stick to it. But, I mean, let me know. How would you flavor Polymorph if you were trying to keep things close to the K-pop Demon Hunters fiction? I don't know if I've got a good one. Turn him into a cute but kind of creepy cat, or maybe a 3-eyed bird with a top hat. But like, how did we get the power to do that? I don't know. Anyways, at level 9, we would be a Bard 8. We get another feat, and I'm gonna say let's take Defensive Duelist here. This feat feels perfect for our well-rounded Spell Sword Swords Bard. It will raise our dexterity by 1, not our charisma, alas. Maybe consider starting in this case with just a 13 dexterity if you're going to start playing this character at this level or higher at least. But if you're going to play them beyond like level 13, you could do what we did, make your next feat Medium Armor Master, and that would then bump our dexterity up to 16, potentially, letting you enjoy an even better armor class as a result. But anyways, what I love about this feat for this build is that it says if we're holding a finesse weapon, so yeah, you definitely want to be using a rapier here now, not a longsword at this point, right? Rapiers are finesse, longswords are not. But then if we get hit by a melee attack, you could use your reaction to add your proficiency bonus to your armor class again until your next turn. Imagine using Defensive Duelist on your turn to raise your armor class by 5 or so, and then the enemy still gets a lucky roll and hits you, and you use this to raise it by another 4, a plus 9 to your AC with half plate. That would put us at 26. We don't even have the shield spell, or a regular shield for that matter, or heavy armor. That's kind of awesome. At level 10, we'd be a Bard 9, and we get another round of expertise. Pick your favorites. I'm probably going Perception and something else. But then for the 5th level Bard spells that we would get for this build, our well-rounded but support-capable leader Bard, I think I would want Greater Restoration to cure even more nasty conditions, Mass Cure Wounds in case we need to heal multiple hunters, and Raise Dead in case one of them happens to bite the dust. But then finally, for this build at level 11, we'd be a Bard 10, and yes, Magical Secrets again, huzzah. What spells should we take on this build? I suppose Conjure Minor Elementals and or Spirit Shroud are still there if we need the offense, but I think the priority should be Wall of Force. Maybe we flavor this as having like a particularly stellar performance that makes the Hanmoon temporarily golden and traps the demons behind it for a minute. Something like that. Don't forget that our Bardic Inspiration die goes up to a D10 here. Okay, so at level 11, what does combat look like for the more well-rounded Gishy Bard build? It depends on if you were trying to concentrate on offense, defense, or support, of course. You'd probably be better off, throwing down a Wall of Force or a Hypnotic Pattern or something and then making some attacks. But if you were trying to go all out on offense here, not saying you should, but if you did, on round 1, you'd again cast Spirit Shroud as a bonus action, upcast at the 5th level, run up to your target and make 2 rapier attacks, doing 3d8 with each hit, plus 4 for your charisma, plus 2 for the dueling fighting style. I'd add a d10 for defensive flourish to the first attack that hits, and that would give us a total of 6d8 plus 1d10 plus 12 if everything landed. And averaged over 4 rounds of combat against a 10 armor class, we would do 44 damage per round on average, and against a 17 AC, it would be 30 DPR. Don't have a consistent source of advantage. If somebody were casting Fairy Fire to benefit the whole party, those numbers would be higher. But yeah, these numbers are significantly less, of course, than the first build we did, than Mira, pure offense, but naturally, right? And don't forget, your survivability is way higher on this build. And in all likelihood, you're concentrating on something like a Hypnotic Pattern or Wall of Force, which sure would lower your damage even further, but who cares? You're taking out half of the enemy forces to keep your other hunters safe, while together you slash the rest of them into oblivion. Healing and buffing your friends when they need it. You are totally the MVP here. Don't let those damage numbers convince you otherwise. If I were going to play this build into late game, I'd consider going as many as 3 levels into fighter for the protection fighting style. That would help you defend your other hunters a little better. And then at fighter 3, you could get your fighter subclass and you could become a battle master, which above all would give you lots of cool maneuvers, right? That you could use to either increase your own damage or probably for this character, inspire your allies further, let them take additional attacks or direct them to use their movement on your turn, things like that, that would just kind of emphasize your role as a leader, like battlefield commander, that I think would work really well for this build. But you could also just stay Bard here and be totally fine. Okay. We've got one more Demon Hunter to go, and you know it, I've saved the best for last because Zoey is the best. And I think I would want this build to be like a mix of damage, sure, but then also give her an emphasis on utility, stealth. She seems to me like maybe the quickest and most nimble of the group, but then also give her some nice like debuffing / messing with the minds of her enemies emphasis, because she gets into their head with her crazy lyrics. Okay. For Zoey, for our starting class at level 1, I would not start as a warlock, actually. No, we are going rogue first, both for the utility and skill, sure, but for other reasons that we'll get into later. For our species, you could go human again, but if you wanted to bend things a little bit or didn't care about being a K-pop demon hunter, I think I'd want to make this build an elf. Probably a drow for thematic purposes, and because I like the free castings of the fairy fire and darkness spells. But yeah, Zoey is definitely the most impish and elven looking and acting to me, so that's part of it. As for our background, you could of course go entertainer again, but the alternative I might go for here would be merchant. The musician feat is great, but if everyone in the party has it, it's a little less great. Make up your own background called lyricist, maybe, I don't know, but I might prefer to have the lucky feat again here, just like Mira, for easy advantage. For starting ability scores, we're going to mix it up a little. We're going 15 dexterity plus 2, 15 charisma plus 1, and then a 14 constitution. Yeah, we're going to want to prioritize dexterity on this, like rogue first character, though fear not, Bard levels are coming. As for equipment, on this build, we're going to want the best light armor we can get, studded leather for now, right? And then some daggers, because those are Zoey's weapons of choice. Now, as a rogue one, we get weapon masteries, and we'd want to take, Nick for the dagger. This is great. It essentially lets us make 2 attacks with our action now, since daggers are light weapons, right? Instead of having to use our action and our bonus action to make 2 light weapon attacks, we can make 2 with our action thanks to the Nick Mastery, freeing up our bonus action for other things. And yeah, since daggers also have the thrown property, we're of course throwing them, because that's what we do. At Rogue One, we get Thieves' Cant, so that we can speak and read that coded thieves' language. And then we get expertise as a rogue as well. And I think a Zoey-like character would want performance, as always, right? But if you wanted to lean into the more roguish skills, sure, go for stealth and sleight of hand, maybe perception. Finally, though, at Rogue One, we get Sneak Attack, which says that when we make an attack with a ranged or finesse weapon against an enemy standing next to an ally or who we have advantage against, we can add a d6 of damage when we hit, scaling up with rogue levels, right? It's why lucky is so important for rogues, especially, I think, for that on-demand advantage if we can't get sneak attack otherwise. At level 2, we get Cunning Action, which says that we can take the dash, disengage, or hide actions as a bonus action instead, super handy. And then at level 3, we get Steady Aim, which says that if we want to give up our movement for the round, we can have advantage on our next attack. Use that with caution. More importantly, at this level, we get our rogue subclass, and of course, we're going with Soul Knife. We gotta be able to summon our blades, people. Soul Knives are the coolest of all rogue subclasses, no contest. They get 2 features. Psionic Power says that we now have psionic energy dice, which are d6s. We have 2 times our proficiency bonus of them, so 4 for now, right? That we get back on a long rest. We also can use a bonus action once per short rest to recover 1 spent die. We can use them to do one of 2 things. Psi-Bolstered Knack says that when we fail an ability check using a skill or tool that we are proficient in, we can add a psionic energy die to the check, potentially turning it into a success, only expending the die if we thus succeed. It's kind of like a little bardic inspiration that we can give ourselves. Nice. But then we also get Psychic Whispers here, which lets us take a magic action to have telepathy with proficiency bonus number of creatures for a number of hours equal to a roll of our psionic energy die, as long as we're within a mile of each other. It's really cool. I mean, I guess we're just such good friends that we can basically just read each other's minds, yeah? More importantly though, the other feature that we get as a soul knife, Psychic Blades, says that when we take the attack action or make an opportunity attack, we can simply conjure a little magical blade in our free hand and attack with it. It has the finesse and thrown properties, perfect, and it also has the Vex weapon mastery in 2024 rules, which we automatically just know and can use here with these Psychic Blades. With Vex, when we hit with the weapon, our next attack against that enemy before the end of our next turn has advantage. Perfect. The blade deals a d6 of damage, vanishes immediately after the attack. Then, after we attack with it, we can summon a second Psychic Blade as a bonus action on the same turn and attack with it, though it only deals a d4 instead of a d6. What's cool about this is that unlike if we were using 2 light weapons to make attacks, right, this bonus action Psychic Blade would add our dexterity modifier to the damage as per the rules. These Psychic Blades are specifically not listed as light. We're not interacting with that particular weapon property here. We're just getting an action attack with one and a bonus action attack with the other, and as such aren't penalized on the damage here for that bonus action attack. That said, I wish they were light. Because what's not cool about the fact that they aren't is that it means we can't also throw a dagger with the Nick Weapon Mastery as part of our action, rules as written. Womp freaking womp. If we had extra attack, we could, right? But alas, rogues don't get extra attack. So yeah, we're stuck at 2 attacks per round. Though the damage that those attacks each do is pretty decent. And you know, good news for damage. At this level of rogue, our sneak attack scales up to 2d6. At level 4, we get our first general feat, and assuming that we went elf, yeah, I'd want to grab the elven accuracy feat. Here, it bumps our dexterity to 18, and says that if we're attacking with advantage, which we always should be, hopefully, thanks to the Vex mastery of our Psychic Blades, and our luck points, in case we miss. But if we're attacking with advantage and using dexterity, charisma, wisdom, or intelligence for those attacks, and we're using dex, then we can roll 3 d20s instead of 2, and that does really fantastic things for our accuracy. We are on point with those Psychic Blades for sure. They're like little homing missiles. Okay, with that feat secured though, at level 5, I think it is time to start getting those Bard levels. We've got to. It is such a huge part of our character. Plus, there's some great stuff to be had. So, level 5, Bard 1, Bardic Inspiration, of course, but then for Bard spells that I'd want on this build, Friends is nice to charm people, I think, right? She's a very charming girl. Bane to lower enemies' attacks and saves by a d4. They can't get your lyrics out of their heads. Dissonant Whispers, same thing. But now you can cause them to run away from you, too, in either fear or maybe embarrassment because you just destroyed them in that rap battle. I don't know. Silvery Barbs, of course, is always great. At level 6, we'd be a Bard 2, and that means we get more expertise. Pick 2 of the ones that you didn't take at level 1, right? And then, yes, we get Jack of all trades again. At level 7, Bard 3, we get our Bard subclass. And we are going... Okay, actually, I would be tempted to go Swords Bard with Zoey as well. It would work really well. You'd get extra attack eventually, which would let you, like, make a Psychic Blade attack number 1, right? And then throw a dagger, attack number 2 from extra attack. And then, since you made an attack with a light weapon, throw another dagger with the Nick Weapon Mastery, right? That's attack number 3, all with our action. And then, since you made an attack with a Psychic Blade, bonus action, throw another Psychic Blade, attack number 4. Plus, you'd get the 2-weapon fighting style, which would let you add your dexterity modifier to that Nick attack. It would be the best thing for our damage eventually. And so, if you were going to play this build until or after level 9 at least, yeah, I would be sorely tempted to go Swords Bard here. But for the build today, I think I'm going to explore a different option because as a Soul Knife rogue, pairing them with the College of Whispers Bard is too juicy and delicious conceptually to pass up, especially for our slinky, subtle wordsmith. I can't do it. So let's explore that route here, shall we? Whispers Bards get 2 features at this level. Words of Terror is where you're really getting into their heads because it says that if we speak or maybe rap with a humanoid alone for at least 1 minute, they have to make a wisdom save or be frightened of us or someone else of our choosing for an hour, or until they or their ally is attacked or damaged. Super fun and on point thematically. Not sure how often you're going to be able to pull this off in game, but then yes, we get Well, Psychic Blades Part 2. Yeah, same feature name. It always seemed odd to me that they didn't call the Soul Knife's Psychic Blades feature something else, since it already existed in the game, but oh well. Now they're Super Psychic Blades. Yeah, this says that once per round on our turn, when we hit with a weapon attack, we can spend a Bardic Inspiration to do an extra 2d6 psychic damage to our target. Coupled with Sneak Attack, we really do go hard when we hit. 4d6 of extra damage now. Nice. Once per turn, anyways. Very nice. As for second level spells, I would take on this build Cloud of Daggers. Feels really fitting thematically for like a whole cloud of spinning blades and daggers to slice and dice our enemies who enter the area or end their turn there, right? Enhanceability is a nice way to further bolster our roguish utility, giving advantage on all ability checks made with a chosen ability score, right, for an hour. Gift of Gab is totally on point for a Zoey-like, in name at least. It causes people that you talk to forget what you actually said that, you know, may have been totally embarrassing, and instead remember something else that was not embarrassing and was just cute. Invisibility is great, knock is great, both of those for rogues especially. Suggestion is a nice way to whisper something in your enemy's ear and have them leave the battle to go do whatever thing you told them that they really needed to do. Lots of great options. At level 8, we would be a Bard 4, we get another feat, and I'd probably just bump Dexterity here on this build to cap it at 20, which is great for our damage and all of our roguish utility and skills. Then at level 9, we would be a Bard 5. We get Font of Inspiration so that we can use our inspiration and thus our Psychic Blades more often, right? Which is great. Speaking of which, our Bardic Psychic Blades, anyways, go up to 3d6 damage now, right, at Bard 5. And then we get third level Bard spells. Which ones would I use on this build? Hypnotic Pattern, I think, would really work thematically and is really strong control. Fear could be good thematically here too, maybe. Maybe even the Antagonize spell, to whisper magical words that deal psychic damage and cause them to use their reaction to make a melee attack against someone else of our choice. It's a nice little damage to you and damage to your friend ability. That's fun. After that, though, at level 10, I think I'm probably going back to Rogue on this build. At Rogue 5, some nice things happen. As a Soul Knife, our Psionic Energy die goes up to a D8, and we also get Uncanny Dodge, which says that when we're hit by an attack, we can use our reaction to halve the damage against us. It's a nice bit of survivability. But then we also get the new Cunning Strike feature, which is some fun utility and debuffing. This feature says that when we deal sneak attack damage, we can spend one of those d6s, we've got 3d6 now at this level, right, Rogue 5, to either try and poison them, requiring a Constitution save, or they get the poisoned condition, trip them, requiring a Dexterity save, or they're knocked prone, or withdraw, letting us move up to half our speed without provoking opportunity attacks, and that would let us make both our Psychic Blade attacks and still disengage without needing to use Cunning Action, right? Some pretty cool options there. Okay, finally, for us, at level 11, there are a lot of ways that we could go with this build, but I think I wouldn't mind taking just a single level of Fighter here, making us a Fighter 1. The weapon masteries, we don't need much. The self-heal from Second Wind is nice, but my real motivation here is to grab a fighting style. Our damage isn't stellar, and I mean, that's fine. It wasn't the number one priority, but picking up the dueling or thrown weapon fighting style here would let us add 2 damage to each of our attacks. It's not amazing, but it's not nothing. And then, yeah, this would set us up for Action Surge and maybe the Psy Warrior Fighter subclass later if we kept going on the fighter route, which I think brings some fun additional power, damage, and feels really cool to mix with the Soul Knife and the Whisper's Bard, for sure. Anyways, at the end of the build here, let's talk about what combat looks like for our Zoey, like a utility-focused damage character. It's pretty simple. I think, honestly, I'm going to say, like, start combat with a Hypnotic Pattern or Fear or Slow. All 3 are solid control and debuff options that will make combat so much smoother for your entire party. But if you wanted to just try and go all out for damage, every round you're simply making your 2 Psychic Blade attacks, one for a d6, one for a d4, both adding 5 from your Dexterity plus 2 from your fighting style, and of course on the first hit you land, you get to pile on 6d6 from Psychic Blades and Sneak Attack combined for a total of 7d6 plus 1d4 plus 14 if everything lands. And with advantage and Elven accuracy, most of the time, everything is going to land. And so, against enemies with a 10 armor class, averaged over 4 rounds here, we would do 45 damage per round on average. And against a 17 armor class, it would be almost exactly the same, 44 DPR. And, you know, that's nice damage, similar to our more tanky, supporty Rumi at like easy to hit enemy armor classes, but pulling way ahead and even getting close to Mira levels at those harder to hit enemy ACs. In fact, once you get to an enemy AC of 21 and above, Zoey actually takes the lead over all of them damage-wise, thanks primarily to Elven accuracy and a slightly better like attacking ability score, right? She capped her dex. Plus, she brings a ton of awesome debuffing, mess with your head control, and really incredible utility that no party, whether they are K-pop stars or not, should ever leave home without. If I were going to play this character into late game, yeah, I think I'd probably want some more fighter levels like we discussed, but I think more rogue levels would work great too. Keep scaling sneak attack for damage, and soul knives get some really cool features at rogue 9. Plus, there are some other fun rogue features like evasion and reliable talent on the near horizon. So either way, fighter, rogue, I mean, heck, sure, bard, you're gonna be happy. Okay, I think the build goes a little long today, so I mean, no surprise, we had 3 builds in one video, so I'm going to keep my final thoughts brief. There's no tier score to talk about here. The number crunching was really different for this one, so I'm just going to say, man, I really hope that a lot of people watched to this point, regardless of whether they're interested in or fans of K-pop Demon Hunters, because you could just totally do all 3 of these builds in a party for fun, and I think it would work so well. You've got solid damage, so much versatility, with every like role filled quite nicely, and every character able to bring something different and unique and important along with their solid damage. Make yourself a party of like traveling minstrels or actors, or heck, a dance troupe or group of circus performers, right? They fight crime by day and entertain their fans by night. I think it would be so much fun to play with friends, and yeah, especially if you and your DM were into the movie and you wanted to try and recreate the fiction in a D&D campaign, these builds would work perfectly. So either way, I hope you get a chance to enjoy playing them. But those are the builds for the week. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for the channel. I hope you have a really fantastic day and a great week. And if you don't, I hope above all that you will stay strong. Hang in there. Don't give up. I hope you'll do good and be kind, and that I see you again very soon. But until then, go watch K-pop Demon Hunters. Take care. Bye. So we were cowards, so we were liars, so we're not heroes, we're still survivors, the dreamers, the fighters, no lying, I'm tired, but dive in the fire, and I'll be right here by your side. We broke into a million pieces and we can't go back, but now we're seeing all the beauty in the broken glass. The scars are part of me, darkness and harmony, my voice without the lies, this is what it sounds like. Chills up and down, the arms, the legs. I'm not crying, you're crying. Oh my gosh, you guys. It's so good. I just want to go watch that movie again right now. Hey Siri, turn Bluetooth on.
Bluetooth is already on.
I'm not talking to you, Siri. I'm talking to this Siri. Either way that you sign up, my member, no sex. Oh, I'm such a dad. It lets us. Would we be the Blade D's? I'd consider mine. Okay, we went. Okay.